All right, we are right at 7 o'clock, so I'll call tonight's city council meeting to order. And Karen, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick.
Here.
Councilmember Valento. Councilmember Erickson.
Here.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
And Mayor Bain.
Here, I'd like to invite everyone to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of council, you have an agenda before you this evening. I will entertain a motion to approve or any changes.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to add something if possible in the discussion piece, just the conversation of maintenance and MnDOT right away and roundabouts based on the letter received last week to the council.
So a discussion agenda on MnDOT right away and maintenance, kind of a budget.
Roundabout maintenance.
Roundabout maintenance, kind of a budget tee-up. Preparation for budget. Okay.
That or whether we can make that happen somehow this year as well.
Okay. I'm happy to add that as a discussion item, and that'll be a workshop session on tonight's meeting. I know we haven't given staff any preparation time, and so it might not be a real long discussion. Staff, I'll take your feedback when we get to that portion of how much you're able to discuss, but I think it's fine to have as a preliminary workshop topic, and we can bring it back for further discussion if needed.
Madam Mayor, I say let's pull item 6B out of the consent agenda.
And we'll get to the consent agenda here in just a moment.
Okay.
Any other updates for the regular agenda?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the agenda with the update on the discussion item.
Very good. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? And motion carries. Our agenda is approved. Our next item this evening is open forum. Open forum is any interested party's opportunity to address council on any topic of their choosing. And Patrick, is there anyone signed up for open forum this evening? I will note that we do have a public hearing we do have a public hearing on our agenda this evening, and so if you are here to speak on the public hearing, happy to either have you speak now as part of the open forum or as part of that public hearing. Either is fine. And for tonight's open forum, we do have Jason Steenblock for Parks. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jason Steenblock. I live at 568 South Shore Drive. I just wanted to say I watched the City Council workshop last week, and as everyone was discussing all the parks in our community, I wanted to comment on what I heard, that the city wants to take land over funds for developments coming to Forest Lake. And I just wanted to know, how can the city do this when we cannot keep our existing parks funded already? So thank you very much.
Thank you. Great feedback. Anybody else that would like to speak for open forum this evening? All right, we'll close open forum and bring meeting back to council with the consent agenda. Councilmember Erickson, I believe you had a change for the consent agenda.
Yeah, I'd just like to pull item 6B from the consent.
Pull 6B, and is that a motion to approve all other items?
Yes.
I'll second.
Excellent. We have a motion for item 6A and 6C through I and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? And our consent agenda is approved.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve item 6B.
There's a motion for the 6B. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Oppose? One abstention. All right, consent agenda is completed. We will move on to our regular agenda, item 7A, which is resolution 522-2301. Donations from various donors for the 2023 Forest Lake Safety Camp. And I believe Chief Peterson, you're walking us through this.
Yes, Mayor and City Council members, good evening. That is what I have for you, is a resolution accepting multiple donations from multiple donors who donated money to be spent at the Forest Lake or for the Forest Lake Safety Camp. Numerous items are usually purchased by these donations, helmets for the campers, food, snacks, and other supplies. And staff recommendation is for city council to accept the donations with gratitude. And I also want to publicly thank the numerous donors that have donated to the Forest Lake Safety Camp, not only this year, but for many years past.
Thank you, Chief Peterson. And with that, I would move that council approve with gratitude Resolution 522-2301, donations for safety camp. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose, and motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. That's always a great event, and happy to have such wide community support. There's a lot of names on this list. It's great to see. All right, our next topic this evening is to reschedule our public hearing for ordinance 724, which is the wetland banking text amendment. Abby, I believe you're giving us an update, and could you also just be clear in the requested action for council this evening?
Yes, so the city noticed for a city council public hearing to be held tonight for the city initiated wetland banking ordinance text amendment. However, the Planning Commission has not made recommendation on this matter. It's anticipated they'll make a recommendation on Wednesday evening. So that being the case, the city council should not hold a hearing tonight. What they should do instead is move to continue the wetland banking zoning ordinance text amendment public hearing to June 12th.
Very good. Thank you, Abby. Any clarifications from council?
So did I hear that correctly? You expect them to approve that?
Yes, it is on, I expect them to make recommendation to this body.
okay,
Yep,
but
so
not-
they'll do that on Wednesday evening.
Very good. Any other questions or clarifications for Abby? A little bit of a procedural update given planning commissions. It's on their agenda for their Wednesday meeting. And is there a public hearing scheduled for that? I know they previously held a public hearing.
The city council or the planning commission has already held a public hearing. They've closed the hearing. Sometimes Chair Gerard will take public comments still again, especially if there are changes that have been made. It is a fairly light agenda. We only have a few items on it, so he may end up doing that.
Okay, it's not scheduled, however.
It is not scheduled, no.
You have to make an official motion to.
Understood. So with that, I would move that council will continue the wetland banking zoning text amendment public hearing until our June 12th meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? For those in the audience, if you're here to speak on this topic, June 12th is that rescheduled public hearing. Happy to hear you then. And with that, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. Our next item this evening is public hearing and a series of resolutions. Abby, I'm going to just let you tee up this whole packet under 7C.
Sure. Karen, could you turn on, share my screen, please? Thank you. City has received an application from Steve Saunders and Nicole Castern. They've applied for a lot combination of two properties in the city located off Broadway Avenue West. The site is shown on your screens there. It's 1098 and 1148 Broadway Avenue West. The intent of the lot combination would be to combine the two properties. One second here, sometimes these will adjust a little funny. We're going to combine them into one single parcel, and the purpose for that is to build a new Mr. Car Wash facility. I'll show you just a little bit of that site plan in just a second, but the site plan was conditionally approved by the Planning Commission on April 23rd. So essentially the combination is really for them to be able to build on those two lots. We don't let people build over a lot line anymore, just as kind of standard practice for us. The application request does necessitate a few other actions. So there is a large utility easement that runs across both properties, about 30 feet wide for public utilities. What they'd be looking to do is to reroute those utilities where they would come from that. Can you see my cursor here? They'll come from the southeast corner, come along the southern property line. It'll actually extend to the south across an adjacent property and then extend across to the west to 12th Street Southwest. So that's going to necessitate kind of an easement swap. We're going to the request is to vacate or remove the existing easement that's there and in turn place new easement over the new utility line. Street vacations and right-of-way vacations are governed by state law. We do have to hold a hearing when we're considering vacations, just to determine if there's any public comment and whether or not there's a public need to keep that easement. In staff's opinion, because we've been able to determine a new design for those utility extensions, we don't believe there's a need for that original easement. Therefore, we do recommend we vacate the original easement and accept the new easements as part of this application tonight. So tonight in front of you, there's 3 requests to facilitate the future development of Mr. Car Wash. One would be to vacate the existing utility easement. The next would be to approve the lot combination. And then the third would be to move to approve the new utility easement agreement. I know that's a lot. I'm happy to help walk through that. What my recommendation is that the council would open a public hearing, hold the public hearing, take any public comment, any additional questions of the applicant or myself, and then discuss. And then staff does outline 3 separate motions. One would be to approve resolution 0522-202. That would be vacating the existing easement. Move to approve the resolution 05222303, and that would be to approve that lot combination. And then a third motion to approve the easement agreement and accept that easement agreement, that final easement agreement. Does the council have any questions for me?
Where is the third component, which is the new easement agreement? That I'm not seeing, and I might be missing it in the packet.
There was no resolution. I can verify that it was in your packet. I thought that it was. While you hold the hearing, if you don't mind, I'll double check.
100%. I just want to make sure
96?
it's included
It's
in it.
page 96, legal counsel advises.
Thank you very much. Scrolling is not an interesting spectator sport. My apologies. Let's jump into the public hearing. And is there anybody that would, so open the public hearing, and if there's anyone that would like to speak on this matter, please join us at the podium, and the public hearing is open now. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this matter? And Karen, do we have anyone online?
I do not have anyone online.
All right. Not seeing anyone come forward, I'll close the public hearing and bring conversation back to council. Council, maybe because we've got 3 related items and 3 related motions, maybe let's just start with any general requests or any general questions you may have before we move into individual consideration.
I just have a comment, if you don't mind.
100%.
The comment is as far as the existing easement there, it's always been a thorn in the side of those lots. And I have no problem with fixing that part. The only question I would have is how the new easement would affect other landowners around. Apparently it's not an issue. They're not here to talk about it, so.
And those other landowners do have to agree to those easements. So the applicant doesn't get the right to say, hey, city, will you put this easement blindly over these other adjacent property owners? We'd be entering into agreement with those adjacent property owners. They have given permission and access to the applicant. So we're fully prepared to, that they're in
The whole thing
makes
makes sense. There's no getting around that. And I can't see where it would not benefit the other owners in some way also, you know, it's because it really comes back around and down and across, and seems like it would benefit them too.
It certainly makes, the vacating of the existing easement makes this a developable parcel. One of the challenges with the developability of the parcel has been the massive utility line that's bisecting the property.
This is a nice, in my opinion, a nice cleanup of infrastructure, and this, Abby's point, has been a barrier to development of this property for many years. So happy to see it get cleaned up and kind of realigned to assist in development, and happy to see something moving forward on this parcel. Any other questions or comments? Ryan, go ahead.
Mayor, City Council, all the easement stuff looks fine, but I do want to note that the utility plan that was showed in the presentation is the older utility plan. That's not the current plan. So if that is referenced for some reason back, that's not the accurate utility plan that we have with the plans, but it doesn't matter to what your action items are because the other stuff is sufficient, but just for public record, I just want to make that point.
Approval of that final utility plan, does that come forward at future?
No, the utility plan was approved by a preliminary utility plan was approved by the Planning Commission on April 23rd. What it could affect though is the easement legal descriptions that are before you this evening. And so as much as we would like to encourage you to approve them this evening, we may need to ask you to table it to verify the legal description is accurate.
Your Honor, Counsel, so my understanding is that it sounds like the utility plan is missing a water line, but the actual location of the easement is correct. So this easement, the words in the easement are okay because what they say is it's a drainage and utility easement that we're able to get in there to do anything we need to do for either drainage or utility. It's not exclusive, to just a sewer line or a water line. So the easement language itself should be fine. The other piece is that the vacation that you're potentially approving right now is not actually going to be recorded unless and until they move the line and record the new easements. So we won't be losing our existing easement until they've done everything to create the new easements and have moved the utilities into those easements, and they've been approved by Public Works. So just sort of a cover. And then there's also in the resolution a timeline. So if they don't do it within a year, basically the vacation is voided. Just so we don't have this sort of weird, not finished, half-baked kind of thing out there in the event that were to happen. So we do have those protections in there as well.
So it's okay to make a motion to approve?
So it's okay to make a motion to vacate because we can do whatever cleanup we need to if necessary, yeah.
Thank you, Amanda.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. Council, any further questions?
Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adopt resolution 05-22-23-02, a resolution vacating 2 public drainage and utility easements located within the city of Forest Lake as described.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye.
Same.
Oppose, and 1 abstention. Okay, next item this evening is consideration of the resolution for the lot combination. That's resolution 5/22/2303. Is there a motion for that?
If Karen, would you mind just showing? I do have it up, can put it up on the screen for you folks. It's right highlighted on the screen for you.
I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the West Broadway Commercial Edition final plat by adopting resolution 05-22-2303.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And 1 abstention. And motion's approved. And final, and of course now I'm having another hard time scrolling.
I do have it up on your screen for you, and it is highlighted as well.
And this is the new easement agreement, correct?
That is correct.
I would move that council approves the easement agreement for a 24-foot wide drainage and utility easement for West Broadway Commercial Edition. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, and 1 abstention. Very good. Thank you for the assist, Abby.
You're welcome.
All right. Items approved, and we will move on to our 7D, which is Outlot A of Headwaters Village, 3rd Edition Concept Plan Review. Abby, this one's also yours.
It is, correct. So tonight the city is being asked to comment on a concept plan for an 82-unit apartment building in the last remaining undeveloped lot in Headwaters Village. So it is shown up on your screen, but it is a slightly outdated aerial image. So just for reference, Headwaters Parkway, Highway 61, we have the new daycare facility the Sweet Living Senior Living Facility that's being built. This is Bell Bank, the vet clinic. So just to give you a frame of reference, the parcel's a little bit smaller, the vet clinic's gonna expand as well. But this is the last remaining lot in Headwaters Village. When we're looking at concept plans, the idea is the council would provide just general non-binding feedback to the developer so that they can go ahead and prepare preliminary and/or final plans as required by whatever they're looking to do. So when we're looking to add a concept plan, more than anything, we're looking to see that it's consistent with the comp plan and the zoning code. Those are really the big two things. So our comp plan, the future land use map designates this property as mixed use, but it does require a minimum of 50% residential at a density rate of 10 to 15 units per acre. It's consistent with the comp plan in that the residential use is something that our comp plan allows in this area and encourages in this area. There is an increased density proposed, and the city code does say when somebody wants to increase density, that's okay, as long as the city can find there's no adverse impact on public facilities or the reasonable enjoyment of adjacent properties, and that there's some sort of compensation that increases the private amenities, that increases efficiencies in public services. Some of those things are things to think about. The other challenge, or the other thing that we're looking at is underlying zoning. And this is where we really kind of get ourselves in a little bit of pickle because our underlying zoning is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. The underlying zoning designates this as neighborhood commercial. We wanted to see commercial in this area, and the Headwaters Village PUD that was approved by the city in 2006 actually designated this as the village core. So this is the kind of overall master PUD for Headwaters Village. This is that area that was designated. I don't know if you can actually see my cursor moving there. But really we wanted to see this mix of retail, transit, the library, all these kinds of things that could help support a lot of that residential that was going to grow up around the village core. The tricky part is, like I said, is that it's not, those underlying zonings aren't consistent with the comprehensive plan. And unfortunately, our comprehensive plan as our guiding document prevails in this circumstance. So apartments in this location is something that is, the city has said that they'd like to, would allow in this location. That being said, when we look at the overall makeup of the Headwaters Village development, between 70 and 80% of the land area there has been developed as a non-residential uses. So Bell Bank, the vet clinic, the daycare, even Sweet Living, sometimes those senior living sites we consider living, sometimes they're not, residential not. But also we have the county service center, and we have the library, and we have the YMCA. So we have a lot of other non-residential facilities that are helping support that neighborhood there. So overall, it's still pretty consistent that we wanted to see a high rate of non-residential services in this area specifically. So just getting to a really high level of the concept plan, what the developer would be looking at is a maximum of 82 multifamily units, with all parking being met on site. So there would be underground parking as well as surface level parking. There is some outdoor entertaining space, a playground feature with sidewalks, walkways, landscaping. This is a really high level concept plan. The whole idea is more than anything to see what the city's feedback was in terms of the multifamily residential and to just provide some high level direction. Planning Commission did review this at their last meeting. I think what I would hear from maybe tonight, I heard from the Planning Commission, is the concern of another multifamily dwelling within the community because we've seen this high rate of them. And really the area here was designed to have some retail services to help support the residential community. Since I've been on board, I have talked with commercial brokers. I've reached out to different firms to try to attract some of those desirable businesses here. We're really hearing there still just is not enough rooftops on the south end of town to support the retail services we envisioned in the Headwater Village area. If there were those If the support was there, the property probably wouldn't have been sitting vacant since 2006. We would have seen something come in. Now, that being said, at least one commissioner did say if there was an area that the city was going to support more higher density residential development, that this is a really good fit because we do have our service center right there, the YMCA is right there, there's close proximities to the schools, and also the county transit center if we ever get our transit service back. So that was, in general, some of the comments that we heard from the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission also did indicate they wondered, things like, how are they going to get parking and stormwater? Those are things the developer will have to figure out as they continue to vet this project. They are aware of our zoning code and the watershed district requirements and all of the things that they're going to have to work through. But overall tonight, the idea is for the council to give some high-level feedback on anything from layout and design to that kind of request for potentially increased density. And if there's additional private amenities, the council would encourage the developer to explore if those densities were permitted in the future. I know Len Pratt, the landowner, is here. If you guys do want to talk with him, it is not a public hearing, but both he and I are available for questions.
Thank you, Abby. And Mr. Pratt, I'm happy to provide you some opportunities for feedback to council if you have anything prepared you wanted to, provide us, or
Yes, I do.
certainly not required, but always welcome if you have something.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Abby. Nicely done.
You mind getting a little closer to the mic,
yeah.
though?
Thank you, Abby. Nicely done, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My privilege to be here this evening. I've been here since 2006. That's 17 years. And we've got a viable candidate to do this apartment building. He's given us permission to use his plan there, so you can look at it. Back when, 17 years ago, if you go back to the original concept plan, probably the easiest to look at this, you'll notice south of the parkway, now that's property owned by the city, and I believe that's planned for a tech park. But the concept, when it was presented way back when, those were houses. And if those were houses, now we've got the rooftops that we've been talking about. But as time marches on, I dare say in any city, 17 years is a long time. And I drove through there again this evening, beautiful evening that it is. And we've got the majority of all that we intended to do in place. It's been a collaborative effort. There's been public-private partnerships of sorts. We've got that YMCA that was going to be a community center. We've got the government center, Washington County. We've got the park and ride now that takes a little pause. So, and housing, the variety of housing, not only these apartments around all of these public services, but if you go to the west, you'll see all kinds of single family homes, including out there by Lakes Area Academy, the Language Academy. And I might add, I was instrumental in bringing that academy there too, just to get that out there, and the houses around it. So if you take a look at it, squint, and you look at what actually ends up being Headwaters, the majority of it is all accomplished. It's kind of amazing, to be honest with you, after 17 years of doing this. And the future that the city owns the property, that can evolve too, But I'm not here to speak about that. I'm just going to the net reality of this, once again, final piece. And I'd like to be able to put Mr. Keppers on this to come forward with his idea. His idea is a market rate apartment, market rate. So I wanted you to know that as well. And I'll now finish by saying thank you for considering.
do have a question, and maybe before you step away, Abby, you mentioned around a desire for higher density. Do we, and maybe it's in your memo and I missed it, do we have an idea of what that is or how much? I know it's 82 units, but for that parcel, what does that mean in terms of flexibility that's being requested?
So the land is guided for 15, up to 15 units per acre, and the request would be for 26 units per acre. Now, that being said, in just preliminary review of the plan and discussions with staff, we can see there's no storm ponding. And, you know, questionably, are we short at all on things like guest parking? So even though the request tonight is for some comment on 82 units, you're not granting approval for 82 units. It's the, hey, you know, if we could get 82, how do you feel about that? And that would be 26 units per acre.
And how does that compare to the other sites that have been developed out there? Is this a similar density to what we have already seeing, or is this a higher density?
I can double check. I'm pretty sure it's very consistent with what we've seen out there.
That's good to know. And then public amenity, like as we think about the public amenity component to that,
Yes.
I guess I'd be interested in maybe not, I don't know if this has been thought of, but is there a staff wish for the thing that is missing? You know, we've had some public amenities given with other projects. So, and did I hear right that this is the last undevelopable space in this parcel?
That
this
is
right?
correct.
So if this is the last puzzle piece going in, is there a suggestion for what that public amenity should be? Either your perspective from the developer or city perspective?
Yeah. Well, once again, in the evolution of these plans, let's say that it was retail as it was guided. We talked about all the parkland and the public amenities back then, connecting, if you will, this site to Hardwood Creek
Agree, yep.
trails, and the athletic facilities there that are now the hockey rink and the baseball diamonds. Those are fully in use tonight. It's beautiful. I think the specific use of these homeowners, or excuse me, these people living in these apartments and what they need, and that's why the space is set aside for that in the concept plan. Further work needs to be done. I get that, and I'm sure Mr. Keppers knows that too, see? But as far as the, if you will, the regional need for public park, that was all addressed back when.
Understood.
Yep. Yep.
I've done a fair amount of talking already, council. Other questions, points that you would have?
It'd be designed to kind of be commensurate with
Yep.
what's already there
Yep.
in that area. I mean, it's, the apartments that are there are pretty nice.
Yep. And I might add, they're full, you know? And the idea about giving people, once again, when I started off as home builder 50 years ago, you know, everybody's goal was to give an entry-level first home product. Today, it's in first and second homes now, they're in some of these multifamily projects, you know, such as apartments. The marketplace is kind of evolving and changing. The demand is there for this. Anyway.
As I just think about what type of public amenity might be needed, I guess maybe as we're thinking about our current multifamily housing stock, is there a particular segment that continues to be underserved? And I don't know if that is 3-bedroom units are underserved, or if that's 55 plus is underserved. That would be something I would maybe think about in the design.
Yeah. Yes.
But that's in context with kind of what's currently in our stock.
Yeah, it is. And of course, he's designing this as a market rate project, and he'll have to mark up, if you will, to what the demand is. He owns other buildings. He understands what it is to blend in. He's looked it all over, and he's confident he'll be able to give people another choice there.
Mayor Bain, I want to reiterate that so because it is an outlot and it would have to be converted to a lot, there is the trigger for parkland dedication, so that could be land or fee in lieu of land. This isn't an area that staff would indicate that we need a whole lot of public amenities, sidewalks around it, public, street lights. I'm not sure what the parking plan necessarily was along the streets, but we'd look at some of that. The code really indicates that if you're going to consider increases in density, that you're looking at the components that are available to the residents of that building. So they've got a picnicking area and a playground here. That's a great addition. I think that we've seen that pretty customarily in a lot of our newer multifamily developments, but I think also a little bit of outside open space. We even talked with the potential developer about pool amenities. There's a number of apartment buildings in the community, and there aren't that many that have those kind of summertime outside features. And so those are some of the things that I think the code encourages the development team and the city to consider is how do we make this site very desirable to the residents of that neighborhood, of that building.
So when I look at this concept from way back, create a neighborhood with heart, that ideally that's what would be have there. And to your point, it's been close, and the land the city has now has changed that just because of not having the rooftops. But any opportunity to try to have some retail within this building or an outlot type thing I think would be nice to see, just to have a little piece of this more than what we have now.
We have been making efforts, as the city has reflected on their conversations with people too. And over the years, the idea of being able to blend in retail with housing, that sounded like a great idea back when, but it's complicated. When you got houses and you've got restaurants and you've got people's activity, exhaust fans, noise, parking, all of that comes into play, and it just drive around and look. Even in urban settings, that rarely seems to work. Not because we all didn't wish that could work, but it just doesn't seem to work. All of the businesses up and down Highway 61 and out West Broadway here need support. Anybody living there is going to naturally come to what's here. And that's a viable alternative, I think, to think about what we can do for the existing businesses and restaurants. We add rooftops, and that makes it easier for these businesses to survive, Anyway,
I understand.
down the road.
I do have to echo some of the comments that were made. It sounds like at Planning Commission, and because I hear it every time we talk about this topic, the community feels that we are at over density on multifamily housing. And although the math may not show that, that is certainly clearly community sentiment. Personally, I feel that this fits for what's there currently, because we do have, this is a district that has newer multifamily housing. I have ongoing concern about longevity and all of those things. And but
Can I suggest something to the council? Somewhere down the road, if the piece of property south of the Parkway, does not go into a tech center use. By the way, you can leave some of it for tech center use, but if you said, well, you know what, let's put another addition, maybe go back to that concept plan and start, if you will, on the east side there, across the way from where we are, where all the housing is, and take a piece of the property there, not all of it, and plan on these kinds of things that were incorporated in this concept way back when. We have been through what, since 17 years? We've been through a massive reset of values in real estate, 2008, 9, 10. We've been through COVID, all of these kinds of things come sweeping through. And I can tell you today, we think about housing differently than we did back then. We've evolved. We have to make things market driven. And the people that own and operate these buildings are sophisticated, you know? And they do these things thoughtfully. They own other projects, you know, they're seasoned. And I've been around things, I've watched this come, and people just prefer to live, some of them, if you will, even including the aging population. I want to have less to care for. I want to just kind of come and go. And the key here is, once again, is a choice. It's a market rate driven project. That means the rents are going to be a little higher. And the idea of, I'm not saying anything about any other choice, but that choice will attract many times the older population as well. Okay. And that's my insight.
I appreciate that.
Sounds like there's lots of planning left to go here.
Yes.
We understand that, and you would certainly do.
Yep.
It just seems like this particular lot does kind of lend itself to that project because of what's already there.
Yeah, it's
You know,
all
it's-
there.
It's not like we're putting an apartment in the middle of a single-family project somewhere. And so it just seems to lend itself to that lot.
Yes.
Becky, how big is that lot? I mean, how many?
It's just a little over 3 acres.
By the way, the news is that the veterinary clinic is going to be putting an addition on. And I sold them the parcel there, and they're anxious to get that underway too.
Yep, they have a building permit in right now. I think you've approved an improvement agreement. They
Yep.
should be.
And we're going to enable them to have a staging area there on our parcel there for them to get it underway. I've explained, you know, that, you know, we can't be there forever, and they know that too. But I'm saying we're trying to accommodate that as well. You know, the neighbor, you know, as we should be, the good neighbor.
Thank you for being here this evening.
Just one
Go
quick
ahead,
question to
please.
your point about attracting an older population. Do you know what they're thinking about in terms of size? I mean, is it gonna be 1, 2, 3 bedrooms? You know what they're thinking?
Yeah, I think, I'm going to let Mr. Keppers explain that when he comes in with his concept. But you're going to find, I'm going to guess now, you know, right down the middle, you know, that 2-bedroom unit. There'll be some on either end, you know, the smaller unit because people are only here for a certain period of time. And then the larger one, because this, quite frankly, is a home for my family, see? So I think, you know, he'll come in and explain in his own terms, but I think you'll find a blending of it all.
Other points of comment or feedback? Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. Abby, any other points of feedback you need from us?
I don't. I think I don't hear any sort of outright opposition to the project. I even hear that it fits within the neighborhood, which was also some of what I heard from the Planning Commission. And then I think in general, kind of your comfort level with density increases, you'd like some comparison with the adjacent surrounding properties. We can easily get that. And that just looking at some of those resident amenities is something that you would expect the developer to explore, so.
Yep. Well, with that, once again, I'll thank you for this. And we can kind of enable this to move forward, you know, appreciate it.
Excellent.
We got work to do, I know.
Thank you for being here.
The developer knows there's an airport there, right? Close by.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about that with all of these candidates that have come and been a part of Headwaters there.
That's very important.
Yeah, and of course, this is what, on the most southern end, more or less, of what we're doing.
Right, right.
So we got that too, as well.
Okay.
Yep. I
Very good.
understand the origin of the purchase of the property was from the family that had the
The
airport there.
whole thing.
Once again, well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Message received.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, council, we will move on to our next item this evening, which is item 7E, the Downtown Stormwater BMP project, approved plans and specs, and authorize ad for bid. And Ryan, I believe this is you.
Mayor, City Council, before we do that, we're gonna show you a short PowerPoint because this is a unique project and you might not be that familiar with, just so we can provide you the background information of the project tonight. So if you do get any questions, you're able to answer those accordingly with your public
Tim, good to
Yes.
see you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Tim Olson with Bolton and Bank. We'll be going through a few brief slides here to give you an update on the project. We will be requesting for approval for the memorandum of agreement with Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. That was approved at their board meeting on May 11th. We'll be looking for, excuse me, approval of the downtown stormwater best management practice, construction plans and specifications, and then also authorization for advertisement for bid. Just a little bit of a brief background. Back in 2021, we presented a plan for the downtown stormwater management area. This identified some high priority development areas within the downtown corridor, and then looked around Forest Lake for opportunities for regional stormwater treatment to meet the regulation for the downtown redevelopment. Since then, myself and Ms. Johnson have worked through, and other city staff have worked through the memorandum of agreement with the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. And that essentially would certify these stormwater practices to meet the water quality standards for redevelopment in the downtown area. And then sort of external to that, that MOA, a policy can be created to generate a credit system for that redevelopment on kind of a first come, first served basis. And then since then, we've developed plans and specifications for these stormwater practices and are looking to get that advertised for bid. So the MOA, again, as I mentioned before, is to really satisfy those watershed district regulations. Construction of these facilities before redevelopment is certainly proactive and has some mutual benefit between the city and the watershed district. And on top of creating some great water quality opportunity improvements for Forest Lake. The MOA identified those areas likely to be redeveloped in Exhibit A. I'll show that in just a second. And then construction of these facilities would be used then to meet the District Rule 2, which is essentially their stormwater management rule for water quality, rate control, and volume control. This also means that developers do not have to prove infeasibility for stormwater management on site, which is a great benefit for those developers. And then even if the Comfort Lake Forest Lake District rules change, the areas in Exhibit A are entitled to compliance with District Rule 2 if using those facilities for at least 50% of their water quality for the next 25 years. So that's all laid out in the MOA. This is Exhibit A that showed those 5.5 acres of high priority development. These were identified really in the original downtown stormwater plan back in 2021. And again, as these areas develop, the water quality credit that we're creating with the downtown BMP project can be used on a first come, first served basis. So those plans include some vegetation and landscaping removal. We tried to minimize that as much as we could within the city right away. Some utility relocates that are kind of in the way of these BMPs. Grading within the right of way to create shallow depressions. Those will be sand filters with drain tile to keep them dry between rainfall events. And then there's some connection to the existing storm sewer so that we can avoid having to rip up North Shore Trail to replace that storm sewer. So utilizing the existing infrastructure as much as possible, and then revegetating with some turf grass on the edges and some more native seed in the bottom of the feature. So current progress, we've had some great conversations with the residents. We've been out meeting with them on and off for about 3 weeks. Had some great meetings last week with the southernmost residents and walked through the project. The utility relocates are already underway. And then we've got the watershed district permitting for erosion control is in progress. We'd be looking for approval of plans and specs and authorization for bid this evening, shooting for June 27th for a bid opening, possible award July 10th, and then construction after the 4th of July up until about October. So again, to recap tonight, we'll be looking for a motion to approve the MOA, motion to approve the construction plans and specifications, and then authorization and for advertisement for bid. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Council, questions on this item?
So these stormwater management space is going to be available for credits for redevelopment downtown. I mean, do we feel like that what's being created is going to accommodate as much redevelopment as we think there might be downtown, or is it, I mean, you mentioned first come, first served, so how much of downtown will we be able to accommodate with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the parcels that were identified in Exhibit A are about 5.5 acres, and we'll be able to create enough treatment for about 3.5 acres in this location.
We have an option to accommodate the other 2 acres down the road?
Yeah, the study looked at some areas south of Forest Lake, in the neighborhood areas. The Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District did a diagnostic study several years ago that identified some stormwater practices south of the lake. I think those are all still really great options, but there are more of them and they're much smaller features. So when we think about maintenance, you know, and trying to get the best bang for our buck, trying to concentrate them in one location is always better. But yes, admittedly, we're shy a few acres of treatment.
Councilmember Erickson, also just to add on to that, so we know that ultimately over redevelopment and development over decades and decades to come, there will be more projects coming in pace with those development projects. We just don't want to go get too far ahead of development, then all of a sudden we have all this capital just sitting there, right? Until there's some projects in queue and coming back, because these types of projects can move quite quickly. Obviously a redevelopment's not going to move that fast, but so just, yeah, in the future, there will be potential other projects, but we're a ways from that.
Sure, thank you.
Tim, do you mind pulling up, going back to the project locations?
This one.
Yes. When you're having conversations with adjacent property owners and kind of setting expectations, are you able to show them kind of what finished product's going to look like? Or I'm thinking of some other projects that have been done with the watershed district that there's maybe been some resident concern around the quality of what was kind of put in place. And just want to make sure that we're getting, you know, kind of setting an expectation of what this is going to look like, and just I'm just curious on how those conversations have gone.
Yeah, there were lots of discussions about what the finished product will look like. You know, how is my sod going to be affected? What is this going to look like? And we have offered to share some precedent photos with them. I've also offered them to drive by City Hall, because the seed that's used out here for our big water quality project will be the same seed that's used in this location. So as that starts to flower, the city mows that twice a year, but as that seed starts to flower, that'll really give them a great example of what those features will look like in the future. Yeah, it was really helpful to walk things off and give them some widths, and you know, to stand in spots where, you know, where there'll be the change in seed and so on. So I think that was helpful for them to visualize that.
If a property owner, I mean, is there an opportunity for them to say, no, I don't want you to, like, I see this one just off of the 233rd where I know this property, there's a house and then there's a swimming pool, and looks like a line going down into the lake there. Is that what, I mean, those outlets?
Yeah, I'm not aware of a swimming pool there, but I know that the property, especially on the south side of 233rd, the right of way is very wide in there. You know, in terms of saying no, I'm not sure they can say no. I don't know if I'm, yeah.
About lake side of the pool, right? And there's the existing storm sewer pipe.
Yes, my apologies. That's an in-place storm sewer.
It is.
The red
Okay.
lines are
Yes.
already existing pipes that
Yep.
exist.
Yep, my apologies. Yep, I see what you're saying now. Yep, that's in place. And those lines will not be impacted.
Only areas of construction are kind of in the yellow, blue highlighted areas.
Thank you, Ryan.
Any other questions? Points of feedback? I'm happy to see this move forward. Thank you for getting us to this point. It's, you know, we've known that this topic is a potential barrier to redevelopment, and having some of these solutions in place and making those investments. To Erickson's point, it doesn't get us all of the way there, but it certainly provides coverage for a fair amount of redevelopment that we don't have in place today. So I think it makes sense. Other questions or concerns? All right. With that, let me make this larger here. I would approve, or I would move that council approve the downtown stormwater BMP project, and authorizing plans and specs as outlined by staff.
Second.
So motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. All right, thank you.
Your Honor, Council, you need to approve the MOA as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Also, follow-up motion to approve the memorandum of agreement.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Pause.
Maybe some modifications.
I'm sorry.
Motion as made is appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And motion carries. All right, don't go far, Tim. You are next on the agenda as well for this Comfort Lake, Forest Lake Watershed District Stormwater Management.
Yes, and Mayor Bain, that would have been covered with this presentation. Is that not,
Oh,
was that the second
I'm-
motion?
We had it as two different agenda items and we just covered it in both, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry.
I was wondering what the different nuance was. Okay, all right. Am I forgetting anything?
No, you're good.
Okay. Thank you all. All right, I think we are ready to move on to, are we at 7G, Resolution 522-2304, Abatement Authority Matters?
Yes,
Is
we
that
are.
correct? All right.
Mayor and City Council, as the council has asked us to continue to look at messy properties, things that are not right, going through that process, and as we continue to upgrade and go further in the process, we've discovered that we need to give more authority for non-police officers to help some of this abatement. Right now, for example, you can only go to court if a policeman writes a ticket. But also we need to have staff members be able to follow up with some of these things, give warning letters, and so forth. So this is really the first step that allows, gives the permission to the city administrator to increase abatement, but then also as a designee, so an inspector, zoning, planning can start to help with abatement, send notices, and eventually, as we get towards administrative ticketing, they will also be able to do that. We're not quite there yet. We've got to do a few things still, but it gives the authority for myself and anybody who I appoint to issue administrative citations when we get there. Now, we don't have to decide on those today because we have a lot more work to do before we get to administrative citations, but this gives us the ability for other staff members to give warnings, go out and talk to the public, which we really kind of done, but we want to make it official, basically.
Does this also include where we may take corrective action and mow the property and
Yes,
assess those
absolutely.
charges?
It also is the ability for us to order some kind of a cleanup, some kind of a mowing, some kind of anything that we can go forward with.
And all 4 seasons, snow shoveling as well as summer, right? Like this is
Yes.
fall. Okay. Council questions that we may have or any feedback?
I hate we have to do that, but we have to do it. That's unfortunate.
It is, and it's a better use of some of our time than it is for police time
I
to
can-
try to figure some of
I
that
can
stuff
think of
out.
a couple instances right from here, that
I would agree that this is an administrative action or an administrative function. I just think that, the expectation, this is not a law enforcement expectation. I think for that property owner to, receive that criminal citation is just a little extra egregious so it just doesn't feel like it fits all of the time. And so I certainly support the administrative action. I wish Councilmember Husnick's point, I wish we didn't have to do it, but also as we talk about, in particular, some of our key properties and using all the tools at our disposal to make sure we have the community look and feel that we want, I think it's necessary.
I would assume that if there was some kind of a question, that they would have an opportunity to come in front of the council.
Yeah, we will come back to council with different enforcement ideas and tools, and especially with abatement, I think you have to come back to council on some of these. So yes, they will absolutely have the right to appeal.
So is it currently, is it that we're not doing this because it requires to have a police officer involved? otherwise we would be doing this, like this would kind of ramp this up where we'd actually.
This will ramp it up mine, I mean, it won't, go from 0 to 100, but it will give us more ability to do more things without having to involve the police officer. Right now, in many of these things, in order for us to get any compliance whatsoever, the building inspector for somebody from planning and zoning has to get a police officer. They have to go out, they have to look at the ticket, they have to write a ticket, and that's a criminal ticket that goes to the courts, and then it waits in courts until the judge hears it, and then the judge as well, we'll give you another 30 days to clean it up, and then another 30 days, and then another 30 days. And this is, we will eventually come back with some more tools and to help us enforce some of these things. But right now, this is just an interim step to try to get some of these properties cleaned up.
Then it would still go to a judge at some point, and it's not criminal?
It may not. We won't get there yet. This isn't about writing tickets yet. This is about just getting to abatement and trying to get some more teeth into our ordinances, what we do, and allowing the building inspector or whoever else is authorized to do it to contact these people and try to get some of this stuff done. We will come back with administrative ticketing before the summer's out. That's the next tool in the toolbox. That's when we should start talking about what does that mean? How much is it going to be? What's the process and things like that.
So as much as I agree that, it's unfortunate we have to do this, it's good to be able to do this, but that they would then have still an opportunity to plead their case, so to speak, if there's some reason why they're not maintaining their.
When we get to administrative ticketing, yes, there has to be a tool there that allows them to plead their case.
Is there a time when it goes from administrative to a legal, to a?
Your Honor, Counsel, so there's the criminal path, which is what we have right now, where your options in criminal court are fine or jail, right? But they can't actually make you do anything to your property. What we're trying to move forward with is more of a civil pathway. So we're still in corporate, we're in civil court, which has different remedies available. Specifically, a civil judge can direct a property owner to clean up their property, and they can require that they do things. And so that's obviously much more effective than jail time or fines. What's in front of you right now is under our current code says that the police are the only people who can abate property, which to the mayor's point doesn't make sense because that's just so outside the scope of what they should be doing. So this is under the code, it says that if you designate a different city staff member to be able to do abatement, then they're able to do that. And so this resolution, so this resolution is stating that you are designating the city administrator and their designees to be able to carry out the abatement procedures that already exist in the code, which do include a due process component, which is giving them notice, giving them the opportunity to correct the item on them by themselves. And then of course the thing about abatement is it allows us to put that on their taxes if they don't pay it, right? So we go in, we mow the grass, we're gonna send them a bill for mowing the grass. They don't pay the bill, we can put that under their taxes so the city isn't out the money that we spent on the abatement.
The thing is, I can think of a couple instances where we actually have a couple of hazards in the city of Forest Lake. And something has to be done. And one of them is a burned house. That's been sitting there how long? And so what are we going to do about that? They do become a hazard. And I can think of a couple other properties that are kind of on the edge. So it gets to be a safety issue too.
Yeah, Your Honor, Counsel, yes. So there are a few other options. I think next month, the plan is, I think at a work session, I will be there with a very long presentation, giving you all of your options, helping you walk through some choices that you will have in terms of moving to an administrative citation process, what that looks like. Obviously, there's pros and cons to everything, right? But we will also talk about the hazardous buildings is what they're called, and it's a 463 action. All of these things are expensive. All of these things are time consuming. All of these things are frustrating. That's just the reality of code, management like this. It just takes a long time.
It's just sad it has to come to that.
Yeah.
That's my comment.
So the requested action for tonight, so if I understand, is to provide authority to pursue an abatement path. And then is it staff's plan that to come back to us with, here's what an abatement program looks like, that we would, are we then asked to approve the abatement program, or do we follow something, is this something that already exists in code and we're just going to adopt?
Yes, Your Honor, Counsel, yes, right now you do have an ordinance, an abatement ordinance. It's Code Section 96. And in that, it talks about the steps that have to be taken. It's just that right now, the only people who can take those steps are the police. So you're just saying, keep the process, we're saying, keep the process as, as it's written, but more people can do it. Next month, I'm going to suggest to you that we change the abatement policy. It's dated. It hasn't been updated in quite a while, and I think there's some better words that we could put in there that will give us a little more protection and give property owners a little bit more protection too, honestly, in terms of very clearly defining the steps.
This has long been a challenge for a number of reasons, and one of the paths has been that the enforcement mechanism is criminal court, which criminal court has lots of priorities, and property cleanup does not rank high on the list, and so those things, there's just frustration all over the place. So I support this path. I do, though, want us to just think about what is that, just make sure we aren't going from 0 to 100.
Exactly.
A lot of our current property situations are decades of tradition that are neighborhood-wide, and we're gonna,
And based on experience, we are reactive and not proactive. I mean, we have plenty of calls that handle that. We won't go from 0 to 100 because we just get calls or emails or whatever the case may be. We're not in a go out and find them mode yet. We are answer the calls and try to fix the complaints.
Any concerns tonight on moving kind of to this next step of broader authority within the city?
No, I think it makes sense to update it from just one path. I mean, it's better to have more tools in our toolbox.
And it seems like, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that it seems like what we're talking about here tonight is a form that we can be working on as we go here, right?
It's
I
the
mean,
first step, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's cut in stone with this resolution. that's
No,
all.
just again, this allows more people to follow the current structure.
My only comment, just some feedback, is just a little bit concern on a city administrator or someone higher up as opposed to a designate, and what that level is, some conversation
Well,
about that.
I'll be quite honest with you, that the designated will be probably the building official and probably somebody from planning and zoning. It won't be, a clerk or something. It'll be people who are out there inspecting and can initiate that process. Because I go out, I have a different view, but the inspectors are out there, they see some of the zoning and planning people may be out there because of those issues. They'll know, they'll see, so, and we will keep a record and an enforcement record, and we'll have it hopefully all pretty documented once we get through it all.
But sign off on someone like, just a little bit concerned of an overzealous, maybe employee at some point or something, that, I guess.
I understand that, and I'm not sure we'll have too many overzealous yet, but we will make sure we take a look at that.
I share your concern because a couple of years ago, we were talking about this, and the comment I made is I don't want Bernie Fife running around backyards.
Yeah, that won't be it. Again, and that comes more, like I said earlier, this is a reactive more than a proactive. I mean, if you're proactive, you have a tendency, you can fall into that a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But being reactive, we will hear probably over and over the same houses and the same addresses and things, and we will continue enforcement as best we can. So I'm not too worried about there yet. If we get everything cleaned up and then start to be proactive, then you may have some concern, but we will keep a watch on it. There's no doubt.
All right, ready for a motion if anyone is?
I'd make a motion that we adopt resolution 05-22-23-04, the abatement authority matters as Patrick has presented.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. Move to 7H, the American Legion Carnival permit date change request. And Karen.
Mayor and council members, this is on the agenda tonight. Last week, the American Legion had submitted a letter requesting to change the date of their carnival permit that had been issued. So the original issue dates were Friday, I believe it's the 29th, but sorry, I don't have my stuff right in front of me.
30th.
Friday the 30th to July 4th. The request is that they want to add an additional day starting on Thursday. And so last meeting at the workshop, you guys learned or already knew that we were meeting as staff for a special events team as we're creating new processes for this. One of the things that came up, or when we meet, we highlight and talk about these different events, this being one of them. And so there was discussion with the group and concern from emergency services, Public Works. I have a couple of staff members here that can probably speak to it better than I can about adding that additional day. So we're going from 5 days to 6 days. And how do we account for adding that additional day? One of the big things we talked about was, and they can speak to it better than me, is that it's not the money, it's the staffing time and taking those staff members away from whatever else they need to be doing, whether that's family or other city duties. And so that was kind of the concern about adding an additional day. So we're just bringing it forward to council to see what's council's thoughts on that. Where do we go with this? What direction do we want to go in terms of adding the additional date?
Brian, council, and questions, feedback?
I do think normally, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think normally the 4th of July is typically 5 days. So when a 6th day is added, then it gets to be much longer.
Go ahead.
So
Blake.
on the question on additional staff, I guess, for Public Works, once you're set up, whether it's running 5 days or 10, I mean, is there things that you're doing, maybe some cleaning on a nightly basis, or what's the additional time?
I think a lot of the the staffing was police and fire. They're more concerned. For us, you are adding an extra day of sweeping the downtown and changing the trash and moving the garbage cans. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's not the concern of dollars. It's just another day of taking staff away from mowing Fenway fields or doing blacktop patching, all that stuff. You just, I think, Rick, but I mean, I think it's a lot harder on police and fire because they take a whole bunch more of overtime and double shifts and all that, you know, at some point you just can't keep finding people to pick up shifts.
That point, Chief, are you able to speak around kind of planned public service coverage, or if you're able to?
Sure,
What,
yep.
what that looks like?
Fire Chief Newman had to respond to a fire call, so that's why he's not here to give direction and some of his input in regards to the fire, but I'll try to answer that if you have questions in regards to fire. But for police, number one, I'm going to say if we decide to include Thursday, we'll be there, of course. We'll have officers there, you know, at the carnival, at the Legion, downtown arts, or in the park and all that. So I want to preface that, but do want to let you know, yes, it does put a strain on the officers and the resources that we have. And historically, going back, sometimes there's been 3-day festivities for the 4th of July. There's been 4 days. I'm not sure on how many 6-day festivities we've had, or for the July 4th festivities. But going back, you know, 2010, I looked it up, and for just overtime for our officers, for the hours they put in just for the festivities, not for the officers that are out there taking the usual calls, cost $9,500. And in 2022, so last year, it was a 4-day event, and it cost us just over $31,000 for the police. So just kind of put it in perspective. When you look at an extra day, it depends on what's going on downtown, but we'll usually have anywhere from 2 to 4 additional officers on, depending on, what's open. Usually when the carnival is open, that means that there's going to be the beer gardens, there's going to be bingo. Assuming the food vendors will be open, and then of course what that does, it brings in, not hundreds of people, but it could be potentially thousands of people. So we want to make sure that we're there to provide public safety. So yeah, just to give you, just want to kind of give you just kind of overview of, the policing, a little bit on fire. They're definitely there as emergency managers. Quite often they'll have the fire chief, our captain, I may be there, and others from fire and police supervision overseeing some of the festivities as well.
I just have a couple questions, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Councilmember Hurston.
Everybody knows I'm a member of the Legion. Okay, I paid up for life member there. But what was the rationale with the discussion, Karen? I mean, was there any, it seems a
From
little.
their perspective on why they want the 5th
Yeah,
day?
exactly. I mean, it seems like it's
I didn't get that. I don't know. I think they just wanted the extra day on Thursday. They want to add that extra day Thursday for longer weekend. The 4th is on a Tuesday,
yeah.
so it's,
I'm
that
trying
may
to
be
figure
why
out
they wanted that extra
Why that
day.
day would even make a difference when it's technically a work day, I
Right.
would think. It might be something going on in the evening or something, but
It wasn't my
and I haven't been part of that conversation, so I don't know, but it just seems, I might get shot for this, but it seems a little bit excessive, a little bit off key. So,
We do love our 4th of July. Is it a planned full day, or is it like Friday?
It sounds like they wanted to have set up and everything and ready, all ready to go. Like they want to be full.
I wonder if it's the
In full
carnival,
motion.
carnival people that were.
My
looking-
concern with that is that it actually becomes a Wednesday night, like, because then Wednesday becomes the setup, and then you can kind of, it starts to draw,
And to your point, Mayor, the next item is for their bingo permit, which has not been approved yet, but that actually, they want in place to start Wednesday night.
And maybe the better course is to have the Legion come in and explain what they want to do. I mean, and you're absolutely right. If they start on Thursday, does that mean the carnival's here Wednesday setting up, and do we have to barricade it
Yeah,
off?
it just seems like it's, like I said, I have not been part of that conversation over there at all. That seems a lot. I think, if you don't mind, I'd like to see a table. I think that's kind of what you're looking at there, Patrick, and have them come and talk to us. Or maybe I can get some insight. Whole thing.
I mean, it's a minor thing on either, but I mean,
Well,
the
it's
chief
not-
said, it's $16,000 extra for the 2 days, but.
That's not a minor thing anymore.
And that's up for you to decide. To be honest, we haven't get a lot of explanation from Legion on this one at all.
As far as them having a permit to play bingo, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think anybody has a problem with bingo, you know what I mean? And they have a license to do bingo, it's just that they can't, the license, it seems to me there was something about doing it outside under the tent or whatever. That was the difference in their permit. And, but I'd like to have some conversation with them and find out why I'm wrong.
I think the
Councilmember
obvious
Roberts.
reason probably is revenue. They're looking to generate more revenue. We know how expensive this thing is to put on for them, the parade, fireworks. So if we were Stillwater and had activities every other weekend or whatnot, we have one big activity in Forest Lake. So an additional day to let them hopefully drive some more revenue and bring more people to downtown Forest Lake, which is what we want to do. I really don't think that is going to make or break us. That bulk of that expense of setting up again and staffing, sure, I understand the expense of 4th of July fireworks at night and the parade. That's a huge undertaking by the PD and fire. But I just don't see that this is that big of a deal. If we had more events and we were stretched thin on that, but let's try to bring as many people downtown as possible and welcome them.
So we do hear feedback every year from residents of just noise, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So the Wednesday bingo, is that part of an outdoor event with outdoor entertainment as well? Or is it more kind of inside
Beer garden will be going, I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah, that I don't know, but I can
Fine.
certainly follow up
Yeah,
and find
that's fine.
out.
Yes, I can see both perspectives and want to be supportive of having a very successful event. I worry it becomes diluted, but also that's their decision to make. You know, they are the primary organizers of the event. They know what's successful, what is going to make a successful event. I just want to make sure we're able to support that, so.
I just want to make sure that an organization that I'm a member of, that hasn't gone a little bit too far, and that we start getting bad feedback from the neighbors and whatever. That's all it wants to.
Understood.
As far as bringing people downtown, of course we want that to happen, but there's you know,
Is there anything timing wise tonight that if we were to table and get some more feedback, is there anything timing wise that puts this into a time crunch that we wouldn't be able to pass it at our next meeting?
I don't think so. I can bring it
No,
back by June 12th.
I don't think so. I mean, this is the 4th of July, you've got 2 June meetings.
Yep.
I think, it's just a permit.
Yeah, I can contact them and have a conversation, and, I mean, I can talk with Sam to
As far as
see if he
issuing
got
the
any
permit, yeah.
feedback from them, and I can bring it back to the June 12th meeting.
Their ability to market it would be less, the closer we get to it, obviously, that additional day, but.
And this is just for the carnival that they're asking to let the carnival start on Thursday, right? I mean, that's what this is about, is request the carnival permit for the June 29th versus the 30th. So I would bet that they want to get the carnival fired up by noon on Thursday. Well, I don't see the zipper running on Wednesday night.
So I think just the carnival one, I was looking for feedback from council, not necessarily a vote on that. The bingo one, I mean, we can wait on that too, or I can bring back.
unless you guys are okay with it and want to vote on it, that's fine with me.
I think, I appreciate the staff concern and really appreciate the impact that it has on our City of Forest Lake staff and those who are working the event, and it's an extra day. I think there's probably some more, like, at the detail planning level, that details to be worked out, but I'm not sure that we hear anything that's drastically different to, stop an approval, and to your point, not allow them to continue to market. I think it's an awareness of, it's a stress, but my preference would be that we, rally and support them, rather than us not approving it tonight. Just sends a bit of a negative signal that I don't want to do to great organization that does great things for the city. So with that, I would move that we approve the change in the carnival permit dates. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, and Councilmember Husnick, I really appreciate your feedback, and that we just had a pause in the conversation.
Just as a comment, I mean, no, that we're in a comment period, was that I just wanted to get other feedback on this thing, because it just didn't seem like I'm pushing this thing any further than it needs to be pushed. So,
Okay.
as long as everybody else is okay with it, I'm happy to
And I agree,
support
it does, I would think it might dilute a little bit to stretch it out that, but if that's their desire, maybe it's, they try it this year and it does dilute it, and they're back to 4 days or whatever next year. Give them the
I'll
opportunity
see
to
whatever,
try.
I'll see whatever feedback I can get from it too, just for my own.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, with that, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. And our follow-up item on this is item 7I, which is the American Legion gambling permit. It says excluded bingo permit?
Yeah, excluded means that it's not an annual gambling permit, so it's
Oh,
charitable
understand.
fundraiser,
Understand.
essentially.
I make a motion that we approve the LG 240B gambling excluded bingo permit.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. All right. Item, our added discussion item is, so we're going to move into a workshop topic. All of our official business for the evening is completed. In this workshop session, we'll be in more of an informal working session, and anything we talk about that requires additional action or formal action will come back at a future council meeting. Conversation related to right-of-way maintenance and roundabout maintenance in particular. I believe you're referring to downtown. Go ahead, Councilmember Roberts.
Yes, so we all received a letter last week about the concerns of that and how it looked, and then also that the theater building was mentioned in that. But, so I was just responded to Dave and included some other staff on there, just wondering, do we have something in the budget? And Patrick had mentioned that there is nothing in the budget for 23 to do anything there, and that really surprised me that the previous council didn't allow for something there. There's two particular areas that have brought to my attention a number of times. There are raised concrete bed that really get unsightly, especially by the time you 4th of July. And so I think that was mentioned. I pointed that out. It seems that driving by that Public Works did maybe trim that, it looks like. So that was great. But just the idea of, or maybe both of them got done, so it wouldn't have been the property owner, it must have been Public Works. But just long term, and the mulch area, I noticed that the park was mulched and city center here was mulched recently, which looks great. And can we do that? Just simple beautification stuff. We talk about this downtown plan and trying to make it more attractive and the low hanging fruit. This just seems like a really easy one. So that's really what I wanted to.
Dave, can you provide some clarification on what is done with the roundabouts? And I know, and maybe it's a definition of what the maintenance is, because I believe there's times when there's seasonal employees that are working on weed removal, and I believe there's some level of city maintenance of that, but can we talk about how that exists today?
I think there's just a misunderstanding of what maintenance and improvement. So there's Public Works has operational maintenance dollars, like we spread preen and we do it, weed as much as we can, as often as we can, and we take care of, we don't have budgeted dollars for improvements, as in like ripping the bed out, putting new bushes in, replacing the irrigation. That's what's not budgeted. But as far as kind of like I said in the email, I mean, we can trim it down, we can till it up and put mulch in there, put fabric and mulch in there for the time being. If we want to budget for landscaping in 24 to put bushes in there, flowers or whatever we want to do, we can budget for that. But that's what's not in the budget is the improvement side. So as far as adding mulch and all that, the problem with Broadway especially, it's so full right now, you can't even add mulch because you get a rainstorm and the mulch runs right off. So if you do that, then you're going to pull out all the mulch, and then at that point you're going to rip out the irrigation, and then it just compounds. So I think that's the part that kind of got misconstrued in the back and forth was, yes, we have maintenance dollars, we just don't have, let's tear this bed up and re-landscape it like it should.
There's the center roundabout, and then there's like the pork chop flanks right on either side that are adjacent to property owners. And are those also city maintained, or are those adjacent property owner maintained? Because I think
they're all in MnDOT or Washington County right away, and so by default, then they're ours to maintain.
Okay.
Hence, that's why like the roundabouts here, we haven't put it all in concrete or turfs, because you can't keep up with it unless you have a dedicated, I mean, to do Broadway and Lake Street, right, you need a full-time person out there almost every day to weed and to check up on the mulch and to check the irrigation and to do all that. I mean, if that's the level we want it at, that's fine. We can budget for that, but we're not set up that way. And it's always kind of been an afterthought. In the past, we've brought up restaining the concrete, and we brought up, redoing the landscaping, but it's always been kind of that budget cut, and stuff. So like I said, I'm more than happy, and I have solicited some quotes. Just I sent the old plan sets from when they were put in, when Broadway was originally put in, and said, what in today's dollars, what would that cost? If we removed it all and replaced it. So we just have an idea, and maybe you don't do all of Broadway and Lake Street all at once. Maybe you can segment it and say, okay, this year we'll do the downtown, the roundabout area, and then the following year you can go up Broadway. But without knowing that dollar amount in today's dollars, I wouldn't know what that's gonna cost. And I wouldn't wanna guess because
So there really has been a unforeseen budget there the whole time, really. I mean, you guys have been working on this thing all the time.
it's,
So,
it's what, almost 20 years old. So I mean, just like your landscaping at your house, it doesn't last longer than 20 years. It's your shrubs die, half the trees die because of all the salt that gets thrown on by Washington County. That's what burns a lot of your plants. You know, it's end cycle of most of the plants. So we're just kind of limping along and you're pulling out the shrubs that are dead and spraying Roundup and trying to keep the weeds down. But it's all the fabric underneath is gone. So I mean, it's a never ending battle. You're just never going to keep up with it.
And it is becoming worse, right? Like,
Yeah.
Well, I guess I would like to see for 24 something like a plan there to maintain the landscape. I mean, that initial investment that the city or the county put in and the state, that like, we just need to maintain that kind of anytime, like we talked about this building, it's maintaining. And so I'd like to see that for 24 short term. If we can do something or continue to maintain those, that'd be great. There is a dead tree in one of those areas that next to the lone oak that could be
I
removed.
actually think that got taken out.
Did that get taken? Was that part of the, perfect?
Good. I guess the one thing that, to this idea of downtown is the state finally came through this morning for the first time to clean Lake Street. I mean, it's our downtown. And that was my concern with our downtown revitalization plan. As long as the city or the state has that roadway, I mean, there's not a heck of a lot we can do with that downtown, which is really frustrating, but we can clean it. I mean, it is our living room, right? I mean, they came through with blowers. I mean, I drove to work today. I drove through a massive cloud because they're blowing stuff, crap off the sidewalk, and then they, by the time they come through mid-morning on a Monday, most of the, good portion of the street is that cars parked on it, so now they're going around it, so half of it's missed. And I know we've cleaned the city twice, I think, if I recall, as our street sweeping. I mean, these are some of the roads that are closest to our lake. I would love to see us include a plan to clean that, at least in the spring, to clean it up and leave it instead of waiting for the state to get around to it whenever they do. I mean, got the equipment, we've got the people, let's get the budget, and let's, equip you guys to do it.
I would agree. And I guess I hadn't thought about it's not just a weed issue with the roundabout, it's now a replacement of the landscaping, and those fabrics have failed over time. And, years ago, which was, 5 years ago, which was some weeds, is now more and more, and each year, kind of some of that landscaping that was there disappears and gets replaced. Time for some overhaul.
And I really don't think it's lack of effort from Public Works. They go through one day on a Friday, they put 10 kids out there and they weed everything, and by next Monday, it doesn't even look like you were there. I mean, it's that bad with, what's coming through there. So it's just fighting a battle that you're never gonna win.
It is the area that is within our control. And, if we're going to start, thinking about abatements and some stricter, requirements for property owners, we need to hold ourselves to that same standard. So I think certainly doing what you can this summer, and then, revisit for budget for 2024. Any other questions or discussion on this topic? Okay, let's move into mayor and council updates. Start with Councilmember Roberts.
No updates.
Actually, let's start with staff updates first. I'm sorry. Let's start with Karen.
Mayor and council members, I don't have any updates.
All right, Dan.
No updates unless you have questions for me.
Abby.
Just a follow-up from the site tour that you visited earlier, the Public Works facility. The site is about 7 acres. So let's just follow up from an inquiry that was made earlier. Otherwise, I don't have any other updates for the council. Any questions?
7 acres, that include the park, or that just separate?
Includes the park and the community center. So it's the whole kind of block area there.
Thank you, Abby. Patrick.
Yes, I'd like to give you an update on bonding bills in the legislature. As you recall, the last time I think I talked, I had no idea what they were going to do. It seems like there were two bonding bills that came together starting about Wednesday or Thursday of last week. The mayor and I have been talking to Representative Housley, or Senator Housley, particularly over the weekend. We had some communications. House Bill 669 and 667 were passed just as I got back from the Public Works tour. And we have some approvals, I'd like to tell you. So in those bills, we were granted $4.5 million for the Eureka Avenue reconstruction. We are granted $5.7 million for a stormwater bond. The Veterans Memorial got $350,000.
Great.
In addition to that, formally, earlier in the week or somewhat there, I don't know when it was, the public safety bill that passed, it estimated we may get about $900,000 for public safety, which can be dedicated to training and equipment only, not a lot of other things. But so with those three projects, that's $10.5 million that we just got from the state legislature, plus another 900, that's $11,400,000. You add that to the 1.7 from the last 4 years, we got about $13 million from the legislature in the last 4 years. So I'd like to thank Senator Housley. I think that it'd be good for all of us to thank, send her an email, drop her a line. She worked real hard on this one, and it shows. So those are, Eureka project is a great funding, and we will start to plan for it now for construction for next year. So have any questions, please let me know.
Well, Patrick, thanks for taking the lead on this thing.
Gotta ask. If you don't ask, you don't get it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
great. Thank you. Awesome. Fantastic.
Also,
Eureka was gonna
just-
be a real,
Great, massive kudos to Ron Miller as well. You know, that was outside of the city's request. That was something that he and his committee pursued independently. Because I'm not sure technically what had to happen to make that, you know, finally get approval, but because it's related to a bonding bill, I think it needs to be linked to some municipality.
Yes.
And so for that to, I think technically that probably comes back to the city as a designation for that project.
Yeah,
but
we have to
that's-
be the fiscal agent, we have to be in control of the funds, so we have to have a part of the project and the letting of contracts and all of that. So we are an active participant. The state would not have given the individual organization that kind of money. It had to go to a municipality, like you said.
Underestimate, you know, a person and their advocacy for a project, and so
Yeah.
it's great to see. Amanda?
Thank you, Under Council. Yes, so another bill that was passed last week, you might have heard, THC, all forms, everything will be legal effective July 1st in the state. The city does have a moratorium right now for selling THC within the city, but in the next couple of months, we'll need to figure out what we as a city want to do, both from selling it, possibly manufacturing it, and, you know, zoning it. Those would be the three things that we'll have to think about.
has the state come up with any regulations to go with it? Any guidelines?
Sort of.
Oh, so we found a funny spot.
Yeah. It will be interesting. So there's going to be a new Office of Cannabis Management is what it's called, that will be licensing basically those who wish to sell it and or manufacture and sell it. And the city will have some ability to do some like registration, but we won't be able to license. We can do some zoning, however, and we would want to think about that. We have some the legislature has put in a lot of limitations in terms of what local government gets to do. However, one of the things that is part of the bill is that we can extend our moratorium until 2025. I'm not suggesting that we do that, but that is, generally moratoriums can only be for up to a year, that's it,
Gives you
right?
some room anyways.
So you do have the ability to, we would have the ability to, if we wanted to take more time, what we would do is we would rescind the current moratorium, and then at that same meeting, we would put in a new moratorium until 2025. Again, not suggesting that's the pathway, but that if we feel like we need more time to figure out what we want to do.
When does our current moratorium expire?
I think,
Pardon?
When does our current cannabis moratorium expire?
Yeah, I think it's in the fall.
sometime, I think it's in the fall sometime.
Okay. And so it sounds like, you know, the initial reaction is that there is less control given to the city. We don't license. So even, do we, and I know these are the list of things that you're probably still seeking as well. Be interesting around like, you know, I think about what do we do for alcohol and tobacco and compliance checks and things like that. And at some point be great to just look forward to your update as those details come forward of what's known.
They'll have to, and so I guess one just item of note, you may have people contacting you wanting to know what the city is going to do, and I guess right now we don't know, right? I mean, we'll look at what our options are. But generally speaking, legislation goes into effect August 1. For this, it goes into effect July 1. So I would anticipate that you will be seeing signs and various things for, you know, THC popping up between now and then.
Like before the 4th of July.
Well, I think they were trying to go for right before the 4th of July, yeah. Thank you.
It's a Wild West. Dave, any updates for us?
Just thank you for coming and taking a look at Public Works this evening. Been an enjoyable time. And second thing is the second part of the dock is getting installed tomorrow. So I'm gonna call them the fingers coming out the dock. I just got a call this afternoon that they're gonna start putting them in at 10 o'clock tomorrow. So they should be up and operational by the end of the day tomorrow. That's all I have.
Thanks for the tour. Ryan.
Mayor, City Council, I'll just expand on some good news upon Patrick's response to you guys tonight. I don't know if I have verbally shared this with you, but with the Met Council I&I grant, we got the final numbers in. Out of 58 cities, we got the third highest amount. Only Minneapolis and Maple Grove beat us. We'll be taking in $219,000 for some of the projects that we've already completed and had budgeted, but was this grant aligned with those projects and the amount we submitted for eligibility? The city of Forest Lake was successful in obtaining $219,000. So
Very good. Well
see
done.
what the fire or the police chief has next.
No pressure.
Chief Peterson.
Yep, Mayor and City Council members. A lot of discussion on city and community events tonight, so I'll kind of expand on that as well. Our staff is planning and looking forward to June 6th, beginning of Arts in the Park, and officers will be there probably at every single one of those events to answer questions, and also there for, you know, safety and security, of course. Handing out stickers to kids, those types of things. June 13th will be Forest Lake Safety Camp. That is going to be held here. I think it's the 3rd or 4th year that we've had it here. I think we missed it 1 year during COVID. And then, of course, July 4th, which we always enjoy helping out and being at the festivities. And you'll see officers out on foot in their squad cars and on bike patrol. And that's all I have here.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. And Kevin.
Mayor, City Council, it's a couple quick updates. Utility bills are out that were sent out, so we just encourage residents with any questions or comments they have to please just email or give us a call, and we can walk through any questions that they have. And I've also been working with our auditors for our 2022 financial statements. I received a draft of those last week, and I'm currently reviewing that, so we are on track to have that presented at the June 12th City Council meeting.
Kevin? And you said no updates? Councilmember Husnick?
Yes, last Saturday, the Civil Air Patrol used our airport for the day, and I went out there a couple times to make sure that they had everything they needed, and they were out there the full day training. I don't know if you don't know what Civil Air Patrol is. It's kind of it's an Air Force auxiliary that teach young people how to do search and rescue and that kind of thing, and how to use the new electronic equipment. And so between the adults that were there and these young men and women are 12-ish, 14, something like that, there were probably about 20 people there and using our facility, and kept everything nice and neat, and we're really happy they were able to use it. So So just a little background, the Civil Air Patrol goes back many years. Fact is, there was even civilian pilots that would fly the coastline during World War II. And that was part of the Civil Air Patrol way back when. So lots of history there. So it'll turn out to be a good day. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Councilmember Erickson.
Just a couple of things. Last Wednesday night, I attended the Lake Association annual meeting. They expressed a lot of gratitude for their partnership with the city on a number of things, including the new docks that are going in. And also they give an update on the lake quality and some of the things that they've been doing. It's been fantastic in terms of the lake quality, it's improving. And then Thursday night, I had a chance to attend the Summit Management Open House for the Timber Ridge. And Mr. Lambert just expressed his gratitude for the city staff and being able to partner on that. And yeah, give me a walk out to Butterfly Island, which is sits between the buildings, and it's pretty cool.
very good.
So yeah, that's it.
Very good. I just want to express gratitude publicly to all of our legislative members, but in particular Senator Housley and her committee leadership that really helped bring a lot of great projects to Forest Lake. Also Representative Anderson and Representative Hill were part of that, but really appreciate kind of the last minute effort here of prioritization and communication that really just kind of we've talked about a lot of big projects, and we've known that our bonding requests were out there. This will do some really great things for our just overall 10-year plan. I'm interested to see with some of those large projects taken off of or put onto the fully funded list, what else we might be able to do, and maybe provide some either speed up some projects that maybe were on the back burner, especially as we think about roads, and having $4.5 million now freed up on that road budget lets us do some other critical projects sooner. And council will have to decide how do we speed up some new projects, or do we provide some relief? We still have a lot of backlog and catch up to do. And so, but this just gives us some more options and gives us a little bit of timing relief. And so the timing is just really great for Forest Lake. So appreciate all of that effort. And again, the last minute communication of kind of priorities and getting things done is just really helpful. So thank you to everyone. I look forward to sometime over the summer, inviting all of our legislative members to just come in and kind of do a legislative update. There was a day not so long ago when we didn't even apply for these projects. And so, one of the things we've done under Patrick's leadership is started to apply for that, and it's been successful. So you don't ask, you don't get the dollars.
Get your foot in the door.
It's been good. So much appreciated to our legislative members, and then also to staff that do the work to provide them the information. So well done. Thank you. That is the end of our planned agenda this evening. Is there anything else we should mention or talk about? And if not, I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor